Welcome to Anomalies. My name is Gwen Farrell. I am a co-host, and maybe we will be joined by our other co-host, David Jinks, if he can make it later today. Our very special guest is Philip Kinsella, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about his massive amount of experience and very interesting experiences that he's had in his life. And then if you have questions or anything, you can always get back to us after you view it on our YouTube channel. Welcome to Anomalies today.
Thank you very much, Gwen. It's lovely to be with you. Thank you.
We're very happy to have you here. I'd like to start out by just giving our audience a little bit about your background. Philip Kinsella is both a clairvoyant medium and UFO investigator and author. Having had many UFO paranormal experiences throughout his life, he began to research the phenomenon on a serious level after an alien abduction in 1989. This led him to write several books, including Reaching for the Divine, How to Communicate Effectively with Your Spirit Guides and Loved Ones on the Other Side, Believe, Bridging the Gap Between the Psychic and UFO Phenomenon, and Sky Crash Throughout Time, a continued investigation into the Rendlesham UFO mystery with UFO investigator Brenda Butler, and a science fiction book entitled The Ungodly Agenda. He has also a new book entitled Terrestrial Trespassers that will be published later on this year. Philip began working as a medium as a result of his own personal struggles in searching for those he had loved and lost through death, and he has talked about that in his books. He has appeared on national television in the UK and also been a guest on many radio programs and podcasts, including Coast to Coast with Connie Willis, The Howard Hughes Show, Night Dreams Talk Radio, and Expanding Reality. He has also appeared on the Pentagon UFO Files and the Interdimensional Connection by EM Productions. He will be featured in a new production entitled Alien Contact, The Biological Connection, to be released later this year. He was featured in a 5-part documentary produced by The Big Picture, which is affiliated with USA TV, and a documentary on UFOs for Discovery Plus. Philip and his brother Ronald co-host a radio program for Paranormal UK Radio called Twin Souls, where they interview many authors, experiencers, and investigators on all topics within the world of UFOs and the paranormal. In 2008, Philip was awarded the British Mediumship Award, and in 2022, the Outer Limits Magazine Award for dedication to the truth within UFO research. Although dealing with aspects of both UFOs and mediumship, he has always felt that there is a strong connection between the two. Philip Kinsella, welcome to Anomalies.
Well, Gwen, thank you so much for that most glittering and glowing review. Although I have to say that it has been a very long and arduous journey, and one where I didn't ever believe myself that I would be connected with so many wonderful, brilliant minds around the world in our search for the truth concerning areas of not only consciousness, but also UFO research. So thank you so much for having me on board.
Yes, and thank you for being here. I guess a good way to begin usually is, how did you get started? And I did touch on those a little in your bio, but I understand that you did have an encounter, a UFO encounter in 1989. Would you tell us about that?
Yes, I won't go into great detail because it is rather lengthy, but it happened in the village of Marston Mortain. We had lived in a cul-de-sac 5 miles outside of Bedfordshire at that time, and I had what I can only describe at that point was considered to be an alien abduction, an encounter. And at that, I had no idea what these were, really, to be honest with you. I'd heard of aliens and UFOs, and I thought they operated on a very benign level of reality. But this abduction occurred on and within 2 levels, one on the physical, material level, and the other on a non-material level. That means to say that I was able to, after halfway through the abduction, go through solid matter, the doors to the house, and had this kind of interaction with some very bizarre beings, that I won't go into here. And the experience had left some marks on me afterwards. There had been some kind of like trauma, nosebleeds, continuous nosebleeds, problems to my right ear that was checked out many years later, and there was an issue, a problem there. So this is what led me into the investigation. I couldn't understand that, my idea then, excuse me, of alien contact was, benign in nature and loving. And I'm not saying that there aren't good ETs out there. I just obviously received the raw end of it, or did I? I'm not sure. But this opened up something within my mind to begin to investigate the reality of it. I wanted to know what happened to me. And this has led me on a quest continuously to try and find the truth of what we're dealing with. And the rest is history, as they say. So yes, I think the experience itself was profound. I record every single moment of it. It was very strange and bizarre, yet there were some similarities between what had happened to my identical twin brother earlier before the abduction with a strange experience, and then what happened with another being, a grey, what he was doing that seemed to be mimicking my brother on two different timelines. So our understanding of the UFO field investigations teaches us that there is multi-dimensional complex parts to this, and not just the simple, we're dealing with a nuts and bolts UFO coming from another planet with aliens that, my argument is, where are the aliens? Where are they? We don't know where they are. So I believe that we're dealing with some kind of interdimensional connection. The phenomena comes in on a strong level of integration, and that then enforces itself upon our human psyche. So that is the crux of it. I can't go into the experience itself because we would be here all night talking about the abduction, but I'm more interested now in the theoretical aspects of research. But I guess that did happen for me to start this type of investigation, as it were.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm sure that it has massive repercussions throughout your life, probably in maybe some negative ways, but also obviously in very positive ways. So I am interested to hear also that your brother had a similar experience. You mentioned that, and yes. I work with experiencers for many years, and I have seen that many times. We understand that there are many similarities between this huge phenomenon, but everyone is a little different. Everyone is unique because every human being is unique. And we all have to find out how to deal with those things on our own. So I appreciate you sharing that. I think that probably most people who are going to be watching this are going to be interested in then, even though you've got lots of interesting things to talk about, probably what we'll begin with is the Rendlesham event, which most people are aware of, that took place in December of 1980. When I first became involved with UFOs and became a field investigator, about 14, well, I guess it's been about 16 years ago, I remember hearing about the Rendlesham Forest case. That was a thing that was one of the things that really hooked me into it, into this entire field, and got, kind of got me started in this as well. I think it's definitely one of the big ones, and many, many people know about that. But until I read your book, your Sky Crash, the recent one, I didn't realize that there were all these other things that have happened in that area as well. I just think, oh, it's about Bentwaters and, Woodbridge, and that's it. But it's fascinating. Oh, yes. I'm not exactly sure where to get started with that. If you would like to do this.
Well, Gwen, it's a very bizarre story. And I think that what you find within your interests, all of us, because we're all important instruments to the unfolding of our reality. I remembered being a kid reading about that case in a national newspaper here in England when it was released, and thinking to myself, my goodness me, that, the military have had this encounter with a UFO or UFOs. There were UFOs, and not so much aliens, I don't think, but that's another story that obviously has come forward in recent years. But then, of course, finding myself in the crux of the research with Rendlesham, not so much with the 1980 event that occurred over the winter period, although my brother and I were very honored to meet Colonel Charles Holt, have a meal with him, listen to him talk, an impeccable fellow, very grounded and sharp as a knife. Jim Penniston, wonderful man, very much connected with his beliefs of what happened to him. But what occurred was that I belonged to a UFO group in my early 20s. And I decided to tag along and see what other people were talking about. And this then led to the meeting with a good friend, wonderful UFO researcher. He used to work with the research of Bud Hopkins, Peter Robbins. We are now firm friends, and I'm not going to go down that road of the difficulties that Peter had gone through his subsequent research. That's another story entirely. But he's a good man, has an impeccable record, and very much highly regarded within the UFO research. Now, he came to do a talk, and he said to me, my brother and I, myself and my brother and my friend Susan, he said, you've got to go to Rendlesham. You've got to go and see this area. There are still things happening there, in his American accent. And we said, okay, we'll go. And so we started to go there, and we started to discover some very strange things occurring, like seeing light phenomena, and it was very bizarre and strange. Helicopters crawling around the trees at low level when we were out there researching in the dead of night. And what is very bizarre is the fact that originally, three wonderful ladies, Jenny Randalls, British ufologist, Dot Street, and Brenda Butler, had co-authored a book that was published by Neville Spearman Limited back in 1984 called Sky Crash: A Cosmic Conspiracy. Now, I didn't know where in the world Brenda Butler was, but I remembered I got out the car when we got to the forest in one of our exploits of research, and I said out loud, I really would like to meet Brenda Butler. And as God is my witness, we'd gone round that forest and we saw these lights emanating from these trees within the forest perimeter. This is a huge forest. And we thought, my goodness, there's a UFO, and it wasn't. As we got closer, we found there was a lady that had this white German Shepherd and another man that was playing some weird music and taking pictures in the dark. So we passed them by and they said, good evening or good night, whatever. And I had this compulsion to go back and see this lady. And I went up to her and I said, are you looking for the orbs? And she said, yes, why? And I said, well, I was rather hoping to meet Brenda Butler. And she said, my dear, I am Brenda Butler. And of course, what happened then was that all of this started to unfold and amass about the UFOs that Brenda had seen and experienced and documented long before the military's connection with UFOs over that winter period in 1980, before and afterwards. So we teamed up, and this is how Sky Crash throughout time became a project. But I will tell you, before that all occurred, we had actually summoned a UFO in Rendlesham Forest on the 8th of June, 1998, at precisely 10:15 p.m. at night. Now, that was done through an idea we had from a song from Karen Carpenter called Calling Occupants. And as we were doing our research in the forest, I thought, is that possible? Can we do that? And let me tell you something now, Gwen. That is exactly what happened. We didn't call occupants, but we were at that time initiating what they would call a CE5 initiative.
Yes.
There was nothing of that kind really was known back then, really, in the terms of how we understand it now. But it actually occurred. There was a physical device, huge, what we would call a UFO, that had appeared above these trees. It was like a pyramid with a gap and a circular appendage. It was silent. The top part moved. The bottom part moved this way with a bank of blue lights. It was incredible. That has been documented, and I think a few have done a few things on it. But, the danger is, Gwen, that when you step on territory or sacred territory, you're in for a hard ride, because you don't want to step on anyone's toes, because some people have exclusive rights to the phenomena, you would think, in terms of the actual events of the 1980 event. And I'll just point out something very clearly to all of your viewers here on your wonderful show. You have to be there in order to understand, what it's like. It was not the beams from the Orford Ness lighthouse. And God help your good American troops if they were chasing the lights to a lighthouse, because it was anything but. The lighthouse is being decommissioned now, but we saw that, and it was not the lighthouse. So I'd just like to clear that bit up.
Thank you. I know that has been a controversial thing from, I think, the very beginning. So thank you for clearing that up.
Oh, Lord, no, not at all. So this then led to me meeting Brenda Butler, and subsequent to that of realizing that she had documented a lot of research of events, of UFO events, of paranormal activity around Rendlesham Forest long before and after the major event occurred in 1980. And it was incredible because it was like opening a can of worms. And who exactly the people that Brenda linked with were some of the top minds in this world. But Brenda, is very grounded. She's a lovely lady, very honorable. And she's no nonsense. I mean, you know, she'll stand her ground, and, you know, very strong lady, would go out there at night and take people around and show them. So we wanted to try and work out what it was about Rendlesham that was so unique. And of course, looking ahead now, all these years later, when we examine places like Skinwalker Ranch in Utah, and we have the area of Bempton here in up north, where Paul Sinclair, a brilliant researcher, is also discovering these UFO hotspots that are also home to areas of high strangeness, i.e. cryptozoology in terms of the Sasquatch. Well, not so much the Sasquatch here, but certainly the dogman, or what people would call werewolves, although there is a difference, obviously. So it's interesting, isn't it, that we were trying to find some kind of connection on the geographical level of the area, of why these things turn up when they do, and what is behind them. So this is what then led to us working on Sky Crash, but it gets even stranger. You know, when Brenda started to explain that she had connected with what we would consider a reptilian man, who also infiltrated the House of Lords with Lord Admiral Hal Norton, and also connected with Ralph Noyes, former, you know, member of the Ministry of Defense, and other top UFO researchers that were involved in this drama going back in 1984. 4 years after the major events that occurred, and just after Sky Crash, A Cosmic Conspiracy, their first book with Jenny Randall's Dot Street and Brenda Butler had been published, it was like incredible. So you begin to find that this phenomena opens up areas of complete high strangeness. It's not just about the viewing of a UFO or some kind of interaction with what we would consider to be alien intelligence, but also a plethora of other paranormal activity. And that is currently what we've been trying to work on and research. So yes, incredible.
Yes.
Dave is with us.
I think so. Come on, David, join us whenever you want. We'll just continue here.
Yeah.
I think that I recently read that another researcher, another Rendlesham Forest researcher, has stated, and let me get my figures here so I can be right, that there were at least 17 different UFO-related events over the 3 to 4 day consecutive period in 1980 December, where most of us just know about one, and none of them can be explained in terrestrial terms. Do you agree with that?
I absolutely agree with it. And this is wonderful because, you know, what Colonel Charles Holt viewed with his men was incredible. I mean, the eye of the object that appeared to be dripping molten onto the ground that he saw, I must boast a little and tell you that the residue of that material, I have actually held that residue that Brenda Butler, that had collected. And it was, they're like cones with hundreds of thousands of holes in them, little holes, and they come in different colors, but you can't cut the material. It's very strong and hard. And this came off the actual the craft that Colonel Charles Holt had seen, and of course before the craft split into 3 parts. And I also believe that it's so certainly absolutely possible that so many UFOs have been seen, because what we discover is that the phenomena seems to integrate itself on a personal level of conscious interaction with the individual. So our argument is that when there is a UFO event, a major UFO event that occurs, it seems to interact with individuals separately. So they will start to see or experience things quite differently from the other people around them. And I think this is part of the phenomena. I think this is what happens through our understanding of human translation, or of how the brain is trying to translate this information that's so weird and strange. So I believe that there are a number of things that starting to occur, not just through the viewing of a UFO, but as it comes into close proximity, it seems to affect both time and space. And I think distorts a lot of other things. It can distort our memory, our minds, and the way we view reality. Sure. So yes, absolutely. I believe that that is totally possible, completely.
Staying a little bit longer with the known 1980 event
Yes.
that took place there, there have been some claims that there was an underground base or underground installation under Bentwaters, I believe, where someone was taken. He viewed alien craft, and he also said that he was in contact telepathically with an alien being. I know other people have said, yeah, there's something under there. No, there's not. What do you think after all your research?
Well, first of all, I have to be very diplomatic, and I'm very cautious with those allegations with regards to seeing craft under the base and interaction with aliens or whatever. As for there being underground compartments, it's possible, because within the forest area, you see there are these huge manhole covers, and when you take them off, there are like steps that go down to a lower subterranean level. We don't know where they lead to. It could be something linked with the war, but there was other strange experiences that we had as well, where we felt rumbling from the ground. Yes, rumbling. It's rather like strange rumbling sounds and sensations coming. We had experienced that ourselves. So I cannot vouch and say, yes, there is a secret military base under there. We do know that a lot of military bases have underground facilities to them. That much is figures, as we all know. But as with regards to the claims of one individual, I think I know who you're talking about. I'm not so sure about that. I just have to remain very respectful of that, but I don't agree with that. But certainly, when we had, there's another strange thing as well too, when we had used to do our research and go up to the main gates to Bentwaters, there was this smell. And it was almost like a very off-putting medical smell. And it was very strong and pungent. And we would smell this quite often when we were there. And the only way I can explain it, it was quite off-putting and quite disturbing. So there could possibly be, facilities underground there. Absolutely. But as for alien technology being held there, no, I don't think that it would be taken there. I think if that was the case, it would be taken to a really secure scientific unit, most notably in the United States of America, which seems to be the go-between with advancement of technology and science. That is where I think most of the technology would go.
Oh, okay, thank you. That's very interesting. Can you, those of us who are not familiar with that area of the world, can you update us on what Bentwaters and Woodbridge are now? Are they still active bases? Are they
Yeah, I think they've been decommissioned. I mean, one was British and one was the Americans, yes, obviously, as you well know. And when we were there, it didn't seem to be used. But there was one occasion where we did see a huge convoy of blacked out vehicles one night when Susan and I were researching. There had been a helicopter trying to clear us out of the area, hassling us late at night. And so we got into the car and we tricked the helicopter, because if you need to know the location of it, so it's very poor description, but it's all forest. And there is kind of like a road that leads off way down the base. So we went down this road and we hid the car behind this kind of like hill area. And then we walked up, we crawled back up, and we found the helicopter going around. And then what happened was that I'd been wearing a very cream jumper because it was quite cold. And I didn't have a coat on because I had a lot of underclothes on, and this cream jumper. And Susan said, look, she said, there's a convoy of vehicles coming up towards the base. And so we hid behind this trunk of a tree, and we saw these blacked out vehicles coming past. The windows were blacked out. loads of military vehicles coming in and going into the base. So what they were doing, we don't know. We have no idea. But obviously the helicopter wanted to make sure that the area was cleared before this convoy come up. There was no conspiracy to that, but I think it was quite exciting, a bit like the X-Files when we were there at that point. But there's been a lot of very strange and weird activity happening there. On another occasion, we set up base there. We knew we were being watched by someone, because where we put our blanket to kind of like rest on at night, we set up camp. We had an area between Capel Green where we would look out and see what was going on at night, a nice clear view of the sky in the area to sky watch. And we decided when we just got there to go off, and at this point I did used to smoke, so I wanted to go off for a cigarette. And Ronnie came with me and Susan. I don't smoke anymore, obviously, but and we came back 10 or 15, maybe 20 minutes later, and someone had left a dead rat and a dead rabbit in a circle on our blanket. And they were positioned from tail to nose with each other. It was very disturbing. And we knew that someone, or maybe something, if we want to take it that a step further, had gone out, caught these, killed them, put them in this strange circle, and we had decided at that point at this night to leave because that was truly disturbing. And that's just one event that occurred out of many strange events that have happened there.
I'm sure that in ancient times, there were lots of activities going on in that area of England. I've heard from some books, people talk about druid activity there, witch activity, things of that nature. And I don't think of any of that as being negative. However, I wonder if those things, you wonder if these things that are happening in the forest, and even what we believe are UFOs, may have some connection with the spiritual energy or earth energy that in ancient times was practiced there. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, my theoretical model and investigations into the abduction phenomena, most certainly with the Greys, as we call them, I was very interested in them and their inability to reproduce. And most people will tell you that they are AI or that they're us from the future, and it goes on. But if we look at the abduction phenomena, my understanding and my research back in 1996, it was published in an article in 1996, credited with this theory about the Greys very interested in our process of reproduction. And if they had replicated themselves out of the normal process of reproduction, they're obviously interested in what makes us tick as humans, the other side, human consciousness, memories. So when we look at near-death experience, for instance, when a person is removed temporarily from their body through the absence of physical life, they go into a timeless, spaceless domain. They're communicated via telepathy with their loved ones. There's a sense of timelessness. And also, if they're returned, normally there's a correction in the biological body where it seems to heal. Now, in abductions, what's interesting with the Greys, when they abduct someone, it's possible they've upped their abduction program because there's so many people around now, and they extract the real essence of the individual into their domain of timelessness. And they're able to, whatever they do to the spiritual part of the body or the etheric part of the body, the real part of us, will still affect his physical counterpart. So I believe that consciousness, or the essence of what makes us what we are as biological entities, is very much interesting to speculate, because there seems to be some kind of conscious interaction. And this was proven back with the experiment that we performed on the 8th of June, 1998, with the summoning of a UFO. Now, was this intelligence aware of our thoughts, or had we generated this ourselves through this manifestation of reality? We don't know. My understanding is that this intelligence was able to understand what we wanted mentally and had somehow connected in with our thoughts and awarded us with the sighting of this object that we were not to film. People will say to you, I don't believe it because you didn't film it. Well, let me tell you out there that if I had filmed it, it would still be debatable. At that point, I wasn't interested whether or not people would believe me or not. I wasn't interested. It was more of a personal truth and more of a wanting to know myself within my reality. So yes, I do believe that there seems to be areas where people can actually summon UFOs. But I would rather consider the fact that it is actually the UFOs that's interacting with the individual and coming into our reality through their thoughts, understanding them. So definitely, consciousness seems to be a key component to this phenomena.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. Having been in the UFO field as an investigator for many years, we used to always separate it out. We used to have UFOs over here and paranormal
Yes.
over here.
Yes.
And, never the twain shall meet. But because I've been doing this for so long now, we're seeing more and more that is just not the case. They're not separate. And how do we explain that? Okay, consciousness. What is this thing we call consciousness? But we are seeing that so much now that people are talking to us about being taken on craft, and they see ETs, and then they see their grandmother who died 20 years ago, the spirit of the grandmother or the spirit of a pet that they loved. It's not separate, it's together. And I think it's always been that way. I think humans have a tendency to want to put things in boxes,
Yes.
so that we
Yes.
can understand them logically. And this is just not a logical thing. It's a consciousness thing. And it just touches us, I think, in places that are much deeper.
We have to ask ourselves what consciousness is. Consciousness is mind. We are merely a biological mechanism. The brain is a transmitter and receiver. If we take, for instance, your mobile phone, let's give a very simple example. Your mobile phone is not the phone. The signal that permeates the phone is the phone. That signal sends information through to the phone, and you send information out. It records the information. And of course, if your phone dies, all of that information is sent to a cloud. My understanding is that when we pass over with our recorded memories, that this is only part of the journey. I think that we enter the reality of what we consider to be the other side through our passing. This life, I believe, is a mere recording of experiences, yet the phenomena is very multi-complexed. Mind is multi-complexed. With the mind, we can do anything. We can remote view, we can astral project, we can do all these things we're beginning to understand. And I agree with you. I was the same back in the heyday where I considered that things were in boxes. But now what's fascinating with researchers is we are beginning to try and put the dots together to understand that the UFO phenomena also opens up gateways to other paranormal activity, disembodied voices, paranormal happenings, ghosts, our loved ones appearing, Sasquatch, as I said before, dogmen, other weird creatures that come in through these influxes of very timelines. So are we dealing with a force that's permeating our reality and at the same token ripping other areas of time and space as it comes through to us and allowing these disablements of other times, other spheres, other dimensions, a residue of which hangs around certain areas? Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting that with regards to my understanding of death, of life after death, of consciousness, and the UFO phenomena, because when I went to go and see a medium when my maternal grandmother had passed over, and I was very much well into the UFO side of investigations then, but not into the psychic realm, she said to me, she said, do you know, she said, you're going to bridge the gap between the psychic and UFO phenomena. And not just me, but many other people. Many other people will do that, because what she was saying to me was that although we considered, as you said, them separate, there seems to be a connection on some kind of level that we're still trying to work out. Absolutely agreed with you, Gwen. I'm on the same page with you there, totally.
Good. Well, we are learning from watching. We're learning from speaking with the experiencers. That's where the information is.
Yes.
So it is, and definitely I appreciate your take on that. I would like to ask some questions. I think that Dave maybe is going to send us some questions on the chat. He apologizes that he couldn't get away from work, but I've asked him to please post his questions here, so we may go with that.
No worries.
But in the meantime, I have more. I have more questions for you. What I'd like to know then is, because you are working with individuals who want to connect with loved ones or others who have passed on. I'm not sure how you refer to that, if you say
yes,
beyond,
that's fine. Yeah.
Who have died. What do you think about near-death experiences related with UFO contact or abductions. I guess specifically I'm thinking of kind of a typical abduction phenomenon or,
Yes.
scenario, and sort of what an NDE looks like, or even out-of-body experiences. There's a lot of similarities sometimes. What's your take on that?
Well, my take on that is I came up with this idea back in 1996 about the greys, and I could be wrong. We have to be open to all forms of speculation. May have gone through some kind of devolution through the application of replication, and they have found a species that can reproduce. They're interested in what we represent on a universal level of conscious awareness. The greys appear, just giving one example here, to work as a one hive mind consciousness, yet we are dangerous because we are separate. And so I think that when we look at the abduction phenomena and the near-death experience, we kind of like put them in a kind of ethereal substance, when what's actually happening is that when we are removed from this matrix and matched to that density, there is interaction. So those that pass over to the other side, what will happen, because I have seen the other side on 2 occasions and only 2, my understanding is that my feeling is it's like an awakening consciousness. It is real. It's more real than here. And I think the same with the abduction phenomena is that when they bring us into their dimension of reality, interaction is then made possible. And of course, when we're brought back into our reality, this is where I think that most of the time we believe it's like some kind of dream or haziness, because I think that our human processing of consciousness, which is operating on a limited level of flow of recording, if it's removed temporarily from this matrix and into another one, more times than not, the individual can't remember what's happened during an abduction, but interestingly enough, can with an NDE, because that's a natural process of soul separation. I think when a certain faction of greys come in and they forcibly remove you from this reality into theirs, that's where problems start to occur. I'm not saying that they're bad, and I'm not saying that they're good. I'm just saying that when we look at the NDE, the afterlife, and the abduction phenomena, there are similarities, but that is only because I think we're dealing with some kind of interdimensional hypothesis. I think we're dealing with seeing things that's operating on higher levels of reality, much like the signals to your mobile phone that you cannot see. And another interesting part I'll put here that I've written about is that these greys are perhaps able to infiltrate our reality through consciousness and then enter into our field of reality that way. This is what I've also suggested to some degree. We can't prove that, but it seems interesting that they do not wish to have anything to do with us, and you can't blame them, to be honest with you, because you have to be very honest. We are not the most trusting of species, and maybe they have their own hang-ups about us with them and them with us. Who knows? But at the same token, it's interesting, I think, that now going beyond the physical nuts and bolts aspect of this phenomena, we now are forced to look into interdimensional theories of reality. I think this is where now we're beginning to realize where science is beginning to break apart, and science cannot give us the answers that we seek.
I agree very much. And I appreciate the way you explain it. It's a rather unique way of explaining, I think, that I haven't heard before. So I appreciate you sharing that. There are a couple of questions that Dave has put in the chat that I'm very curious about the answers to these too. So I will ask them. So he says, I want to know what the ETs know about the afterlife. Do they have more extensive access to the other side, or are they similarly barred from visiting there during life?
Well, that's interesting. And a speculation that I also considered through my hypothesis. Well, if we take an example of the greys, for instance, my idea, and it was only an idea, that if we ourselves had gone through some kind of cloning process, you, Gwen, are the natural form of biological development. You would carry memories from the other side and so on and so forth. Your clones would only have the memory imprint of one single physical life. So the question is, when you die, you will return to source, to all that is. The clones will only have the memory of one single incarnation, and therefore when they die, perhaps their signature is not strong enough to return back to source. So if this intelligence, this consciousness has amalgamated itself to a one-mind-hind level, they have found a system that can reproduce. And it could be possible to speculate, as I've said in my book, that they're trying to find the secret of what makes us what we are. Perhaps they're trying to find the creator through us because they themselves are confused. There are several other hypothetical examples we can take here. It could be possible that the Greys are themselves creating a new genus because we finished here on Earth and they want to take this new hybrid species to another system altogether. Right. That's one area that we can look at. Another area that we can contemplate is that going back into our antediluvian culture, the reality of that, not the fairy tale version of the Sumerian and Akkadian text with regards to the Anunnaki, they were thought to have been the creators of humanity. Well, they allowed us to reproduce, although that wasn't part of the plan. Is it possible that they had also engineered some other life form that was not able to produce, full stop, that they now have found us, so that we are all connected to some level and all trying to find our way back to source or our connection on of where we come from? People will say, no, 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 you've got that all wrong. They are AI, they're from the future. I am not disputing that. I have stated before that I am open to all forms of speculation, but my goodness me, we are allowed to think outside the box, even if the theoretical models, will turn out to be false at the end. We don't know.
You mentioned the Greys, and I know you've had some experience or work with them. Do you think that other alien races, otherworldly races, are also doing similar things to what the Greys are doing with humans?
Well, I believe that there are other alien intelligences, most definitely. The big question is, where are they? This is my argument. Where exactly are they? They've secreted themselves so well and away from camera technology. The UFOs are filmed, recorded on radar. They are there. The phenomena is there. That is undisputable. But the aliens themselves seem to secrete, themselves away from us. There's different types. You have the reptilians, you have the Greys, you have the tall Greys, you've got the tall whites, and it goes on and on and on. I don't dispute that we have other extraterrestrial species in our universe or interdimensionally, but it's curious to know where they are. And I think that perhaps, we have to consider the fact that as a species, as a human species, we are still in kindergarten. If they came here, perhaps, and they gave us all the fruits of their knowledge, we would abuse that. We would literally abuse that. Mm-hmm. There are good ETs, there are bad ETs. It's the same with humans. That's the way I see it. But I really don't know. I mean, I would like to consider the fact that perhaps on some level, that there is some kind of integration with them, with us, but we have to differentiate fact from fiction. Someone is stating that they're going off with ETs every week, every night of the week, and they're having all these wonderful experiences. Well, perhaps that's well and good, but what we're after as researchers, the actual, the physicality of it. And although it frustrates us because we can't get hold of that, we have to rely on witness testimony. And you said so yourself as a wonderful researcher yourself, Gwen, that there are patterns, and that's what we're looking for, patterns with regards to these experiences. I would love nothing more than for a Grey physically to come in here and sit down and tell me all about it. But I just don't think that's going to happen somehow. We do have a sense of humor about it. I have a wonderful, wicked sense of humor with it. You need it in this department of investigations.
Right. That's what I always say. In this field, if you don't have a sense of humor, you're going to be in deep trouble. I have spoken with many experiencers who actually talk about ETs having sense of humor. So a sense of humor seems to be something that is part of consciousness. Yes. Like everything else is part of consciousness, just one aspect of it. And so that kind of makes me feel good. It makes me feel a little bit more, maybe I understand these other races a little bit better. If we can laugh at least laugh at things.
Oh, yes.
So I think Dave has another question. It's kind of a follow-up on the one that he asked before about the NDEs. The question is, do their activities here have something to do with what humans call the afterlife? And what does this have to do with what we call our soul?
Right. Okay. So we have humanized everything as a species. You know, we have created a God that's a man. I don't believe that. I believe that we are all part of some evolving energy, consciousness that we're all a part of, and that consciousness is split into billions upon billions of pieces. That's like a probes that's gone out to go through experiences. And I liken it to some kind of recording that when we come back to source at the end, maybe the one is experiencing more about itself through the extension of us as co-creators to this experience called life. We have humanized everything. We look in the mirror and we say, I'm human, I am Philip, and you are Gwen. Mm-hmm. And we take that for granted. But we have to understand that through our research, that it may be very different, that the essence of what we represent is not human, it is soul, it is conscious awareness. And that conscious awareness may have evolved into other realities, incarnated into other systems of reality, and that we are ostensibly all part of the same thing, but can't see it here. My curiosity are the last sighting of the amazing UFOs that have been recorded with me and my brother and many other people now that we found on the 9th of April 2016 at precisely 11:15 p.m. at night here in England, right here, when I was coming back from some police friends' meal, early birthday meal we had. Maybe it's possible that most of this phenomena is checking up on us because we have decided to incarnate into human form, excuse my French, God help us, and that they have come forth to check up on us, to see how we are faring. You know, we have to take this into consideration, that we are maybe dealing with a multi-complex drama of life that, you know, if we look at the human and our senses, we're very limited through our sense of perception. You know, we can only see a certain amount of the light spectrum. And, you know, maybe it's like the soul is coming in and thinking, oh, right, we can record and we can go through these experiences. And with this relatively new species called humanity, let us workers come forward and try and help out on some level. Whether or not I'm doing a good job or not, I'm not really sure. I think I'm going to get a refund when I cross back to the other side. But I will say to you that on a soul level, that is interesting, because I believe that when we reach the core of the experience, when we pass to the other side, that we will find that it's not just human. And this is the thing, because again, religion, unfortunately, within its separate ideologies, have condensed the way that we think, that we feel. They put fear into people. It's not like that. So I believe that perhaps that other intelligences are connected to this sphere of creation, and we're all part of that. I believe that, most definitely.
Do you believe that the many different unusual happenings that you yourself have witnessed and other people have witnessed in Rendlesham, since this is our basis for our interview today, shadow men, monk-like figures, jellyfish-type craft, things like that. Are they somehow linked all with this consciousness? Are we talking about interdimensional portals here? Or what's your feeling for those?
Well, that is the multi-million-dollar question, isn't it? I think, to be honest with you, it's totally bizarre. I do subscribe to the fact that when UFOs come into our reality, that they somehow distort the area of space and time around them. Does this mean to say that other realities slip through the net of where the UFO has broken through into our matrix? Who knows? There's certainly like a lot of residue that's left, that's that's imprinted upon this planet. And it's rather like the ocean. If you have a big ship going through the ocean, it will upset the waves, and then the waves calm down after a time. So we do find that in these certain geographical locations of areas of high strangeness, where UFOs are predominantly seen, or light phenomena is seen, seems to alter our perception of reality. Whether or not that is responsible for the whole phenomena at hand, we don't know. Is there something else that's bringing this to us? Is it one force that's got many faces? We don't know, because the phenomena continuously eludes our sense of reality. And this is what we're looking into. This is what every single serious researcher like yourself and many others are looking into to try and find the answers. And the answers can be found through witness testimony, those genuine, legitimate cases, I might add here. So like the near-death experience, when researchers are trying to find out what's going on, the same with ufology, what's going on. But we find, and I believe that we are all on this journey, and that within this very relatively short life, that this is only part of it. I don't think or feel that we're going to get all of the answers here through this single timeline. I think that the greater reality is to come. And I think maybe that these other alternative forces are coming in to check up on us, to experiment on us, to analyze us, because they're curious about us as we are about them.
About them. Yes. What about the binary codes?
Oh, yes.
Where would you say that fits in? Is that just another way that they're trying to communicate with us, or how do you feel about that?
Well, Jim Penniston was the one gentleman who, when he experienced the craft, the relatively small craft that was hovering several feet from the floor in the forest, when he touched it, he started to get some kind of download in zeros and ones. As we know, binary is the universal language, numbers to create language. And then Brenda started to receive binary codes. I don't think that occurs with everyone. I mean, certainly I didn't get any binary codes. And I will tell you, for one, that I am absolutely rubbish at maths. English, I'm great at. Art, lovely. Math, forget it. So I think they didn't bother with me with that. But I think the universal language of binary does happen to some people, not everyone. I think it's the way that they translate the information, unless, of course, their experiences and whatever force is operating through that experience wants that individual to bring information to the fore to other people to learn, rather like the crop circles, the real crop circles, not the fabricated ones, because there are differences between the two, and the encrypted messages within those patterns that are developed.
Yes, very interesting. It's something that I believe that Jim Penniston did write a book about the binary codes some years ago, and I'm sure it's very interesting. I've skimmed it for research, but never actually sat down and read it.
Yeah, so. The Rendlesham Enigma by Gary Osborne and Jim Penniston. Wonderful, brilliant book. Deals with ancient history, the pyramids, and all sorts. It's absolutely incredible.
Well, thank you for giving us that title. Yeah, I'll make sure that I write that down.
Oh, I'm happy to help out any author, any researcher. It's share for all. We're all in the same bed here.
Right. You have given us so much interesting information today, and I appreciate it all. I think maybe we'll sort of begin to bring this to a close, and with a final question. But before I ask the final question, is there something that you would like to share with us and our audience about that I haven't asked you about, that you think is important for people to know through your own experiences, either through the UFO at Rendlesham or your own experiences as a medium?
The message I will relay to all of your listeners is to believe in your inherent greatness. Remain true to yourself, to your research, whatever it may be. Remain true and honest. Be empathic, but also be guarded and be wary. Remember that you are much greater than the biological instrument that you inhabit currently, that you are mind, you are consciousness, that you are part of what we would call the God force, that we are all connected. And I think that, if we were a little bit kinder to one another and more understanding, and less argumentative and in disagreement with everyone, we would make some headway with regards to our understanding of what life really represents. I don't think that I and many other people can change that, but we can make a difference within ourselves, within the world, by just making those little, things happen. Being kind, being honest, being truthful, and believing in yourself. Belief shapes reality. You are your reality. You are your Godhead. You are your author and creator, your architect. You alone can change your life. And that's what I will say. So believe in who you are. And, although ufologists disagree, the same with paranormal research, let's just be open and, kind and try to be understanding, with truth. And may I underline that word, truth.
Thank you. Would you like to give us a website that you have, or a way that people can reach you if they would like to?
Yes, the website is www.thekinsellatwins.com. It's very simple. So www.thekinsellatwins.com. And on social media, you know, like as with all of us today, we're all service providers to some degree, I think. Content providers, I think is more the word. David Saperstein, the author of Cocoon, he's a good friend, and they made a film of his book. Dear friend, he said that we would all, and he endorsed the Ungodly Agenda, the science fiction novel from another publisher years ago, but he said that we would all end up being content providers, no longer authors. I said, what would they?
I do want to recommend the book of yours that I have read. After seeing your bio, I have several more volumes or more books to add to my reading list. But the one that I recently read, I want to mention again, and that is called Sky Crash Throughout Time, a continued investigation into the Rendlesham UFO mystery. And this was written with investigator Brenda Butler. It is a fascinating book. It covers a lot of things that we've talked about today, and many more things. So, and I think it definitely has a ring of truth in it. So thank you very much. We're so happy to have you with us today. And I think we will say goodbye, and we would love to have you come back on and talk with us again sometime if you would like to do that.
Gwen, I have really enjoyed it, and so grateful to you, you know, to have a chat, and to, you know, you don't have to agree with everything I say, but it's good to chat and talk and discuss and, you know, think. And I think that is the amazing thing where we can share in that experience. Wonderful. Thank you so much indeed.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you so much. Take care.
God bless. Bye-bye, Gwen. Thank you very much.